meeting in order. Start pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have a roll call.
Mr. Davis?
Here.
Mr. Bembo?
Here.
Mrs. Lee?
Here.
Mrs. Head?
Here.
Mrs. Rail? Here. Mrs. Medina?
Here.
Mr. Krings?
Here. Thank you, Maureen. Before we start, I'd like to publicly acknowledge it's Teacher Appreciation Week. So on behalf of the board, I'd like to thank all our teaching staff in our district for all they do for our kids. Very much appreciated, so thank you. First item tonight is our student representatives report. Party shot, right?
So prom was last week, and there was new royalty. I had to give up my crown to Rich Vanderhei, and then Katie Voigt won prom queen. Deccan Nationals was a couple of weeks ago in Anaheim. There were no medals, but most of it was more focused on networking and learning new leadership skills. Like I met a whole bunch of people from Texas and all the way out east, and they were really making fun of our accent, how we say like bag and everything. Saxophones, they received gold at State Solo Ensemble this past weekend. State Student Council competed in Madison and got quite a few golds and silvers. There were new student council officers elected, like Desiree, and she will be taking over my position. Adeline C. and Lexi Alwarden won this year's Cole Scholarship, and that was actually doubled to $10,000 instead of the $5,000, which was really awesome. Some events coming up. There's 17 more days of school left. We're all counting it down. Evening of Roses is Wednesday. Scholarship night is May 17th. Dodgeball Classic is May 19th. College Decision Day, where we all wear what we're going to be wearing with this, is May 26th, and then class reunion 0 for the seniors. And then we also have this gift. We competed in it for student council. It's called the Spirit of Excellence. It's everything that we've done in this last year February to this year February, and it just has everything and all that. So I just want to give that to you guys.
Thank you, Drake. Thank you. I have something for you, Drake. An appreciation for service and leadership to the students of the Wisconsin Rapids Public Schools and serving as student representative to the Wisconsin Rapids Public School Board of Education. Drake Blossfield, 2 years. Thank you very much, and best of luck in your future. Pleasure having you. Would you like to introduce yourself?
I'm Tristan.
Okay.
I'm Desiree Lou, and I'm currently finishing my sophomore year at Lincoln High School.
Okay, well, welcome. Look forward to your reports, everyone. There's some big shoes to fill. Okay, next we'll move on to the minutes.
Okay, I would make a motion that the regular Board of Education meeting minutes of April 10th, the special Board of Education meeting open and closed of April 24th, the special Board of Education meeting organizational meeting of April 24th, and the special Board of Education meeting of April 24th, approved as printed.
Second.
Okay, we have motion and second to approve the regular Board of Education meeting minutes of April 10th, the special Board of Education meeting open and closed session meeting minutes of April 24th, the special Board of Education organizational meeting minutes of April 24th, and the special Board of Education meeting minutes of April 24th. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Minutes are approved. Next, we have comments from citizens and delegations. Do we have any, Marie?
None registered.
Okay, thank you. Next, we'll move on to committee reports. John with Business Services.
Thank you, John. Business Services met on Monday, May 1st of 2017. We started the meeting at 6 o'clock, and there was no public comment. We had 4 consent agenda items in our meeting. Does anybody wish to have any of those? Okay, hearing none. First item was food service meal price approval. And normally, we have to increase the prices per year, every year for the federal government regulations and that type of thing, but we were able to get a waiver from DPI to be accepted, and so that we could maintain the current meal prices, so we did not have to increase. our meal prices. Without the exemption, the district would have had to increase meal prices for a minimum of 10 cents at all grade levels next year. So students currently at elementary level are $1.95, the middle school is $2.15, and the high school is $2.35. Visitor meal prices are elementary is $2.45, middle school $2.65, and high school $2.85. So those prices will maintain the same, be maintained for 27-18 at the same level as this year. So the committee recommends, and I move that we approve the proposal to maintain the current meal prices for the 27-18 school year and accept the DPI waiver.
Sorry.
Okay, we have motion and second to approve BS1. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
All right, BS2 was wireless access points. Again, several of those have been failing at our buildings, as Phil explained. Plus, with the addition at the Lincoln High School and the Wisconsin Rapids area middle school, it was determined that it would make sense to purchase these access points now so the district can utilize the federal E-rate dollars to help offset the cost. So we are proposing the purchase of 85 access points, of which some will be used at the current buildings, but several of them will be used in the new construction. I believe Phil said about a dozen at Lincoln and
About 15 at Rams.
15 at Rams and 8 or 10 at Lincoln. So the remainder will be for the new construction. So for BS2, the committee recommends, and I move that we accept the purchase of 85 Meraki MR2 wireless access points from PDS at a cost of $44,740.60, with 40% of the cost being funded from district technology referendum budget and 60% being funded from federal E-rate dollars for approval.
Okay, we have motion and second to approve BS2. We have roll call, please, Marie.
Mrs. Medina?
Yes.
Mr. Bembo?
Yes.
Mrs. Lee?
Yes.
Mr. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. Krings?
Yes.
Mrs. Hett?
Yes.
Mrs. Rayom?
Yes.
All right, BS3 we had, it's another purchase for the firewall. Due to the bandwidth expansion of the buildings at Rams and at Lincoln, we need to protect our data, and the firewalls need to be replaced. Phil had explained that he had multiple bids from this, some of them ranging from like $20,000 to up to $250,000. So basically what they had to do is look at what we would get the best bang for the buck, basically, and that was the from PDS. So the committee moves, and I recommend that we approve the purchase of 2 Fortinet 600D firewalls from PDS at a cost of $32,877.78, with 40% of the cost being funded by the district technology referendum budget and 60% being funded by the federal E-rate dollars for approval.
Second.
Okay, we have motion and a second to approve BS3. We have roll call, please, Marie.
Mrs. Rayom?
Yes.
Mrs. Hett?
Yes.
Mr. Krings?
Yes.
Mr. Davis?
Yes.
Mrs. Lee?
Yes.
Mr. Bembo?
Yes.
Mrs. Medina?
Yes.
All right, BS4 is food service again, and I'm sorry, I didn't give this to Maureen to get to everybody, but Lizzie has a very nice drawing of how the cafeteria is going to be redesigned, so we'll get copies of that at the end of the meeting tonight for you all to look at. So she worked, as Lizzie explained to us during the business service meeting, that she had worked with a consultant who worked the space because the space is limited that she had to work with, so it wasn't this big expanse that some places have where they have multiple stations of food. So they are eliminating where the entryway will be now. It used to be a conference room, and that's going to be disappear and become part of the new cafeteria plan so that they can get a better flow and service more people. Even with our declining enrollment, she's actually serving more lunches at the high school, comparatively 74%, you said?
About 60% of the high school, which is
60% of the high school, which is rather high for a high school setting. So with the 9th grade moving there in the 2017-18 school year, or the 9th graders moving to the high school, that will also increase the usage, and the flow would be much brighter. So they're going to, on the drawing, they're redoing some of the lines. She gave us a little PowerPoint of the lines. And then there's going to be the area where it's going to be also the concession area for sporting events. So when we have basketball, football games, the state gymnastics and that type of thing. So this area, for instead of just being used 40 times a year maybe, is going to be used every day of the school year, basically for lunches as well as then concession at night. So it's kind of nice to have a dual purpose area, and it's going to be saving the district some money not to have two separate spaces, rather to use one space and instead of duplicating the issues. So the committee moves, and I recommend for the purchase of the installation and food service equipment from Strike Equipment at a total cost of $279,718, with $9,681 of the cost being funded from the general fund budget, and the remaining $270,037 being funded from Food Service Fund 50 for approval to the board.
Second.
Okay, we have motion and second to approve the S4. We have roll call, please, ma'am.
Mrs. Medina?
Yes.
Mrs. Lee?
Yes.
Mr. Bembo?
Yes.
Mr. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. Krings?
Yes.
Mrs. Realm?
Yes.
Mrs. Head?
Yes.
Thank you, Maureen.
Then the balance of our meeting minutes or our report was updates on purchases, vocabulary, which is the site license. Then we have our school liaison officer cost, the library, Skyward student costs, and then the last purchase was library service fees, or purchase for software for library service and different things in the library services. So with that, the committee moves, and I recommend approval of the meeting minutes.
Okay, we have motion and second to approve the meeting minutes of the Business Service Committee of May 1st, 2017. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Minutes are approved.
John, I'd encourage Lizzie. I know there's federal legislation to weaken the nutritional standards that we've been working on. And I consider our district a leader in providing good nutrition to our students using local farm material that's grown in the area. So I would encourage us to keep our finger to the plow and to do what we've been doing rather than to step back on this particular thing.
And then I'd like to point out one other thing is that I've mentioned a couple times that the money funds are coming from part of the technology referendum budgets and curriculum referendum budgets. That referendum was in 2006, so the school district has been very frugal on using that money, and we're basically to the end of that referendum money. So that money from the 2006 referendum for curriculum and technology is basically coming to an end now. So that will have to be looked at in the next couple of years as far as replacing those funds. But this is now 11 years since that the administration has used that money wisely so that we still have it to use and make these purchases.
Thank you for your report, John. Next, we can move on to personnel.
Personnel services met last Monday, May 1st, and we started at 5:30, even though we had another 8. And from that meeting, we have 21 consent agenda items, and they are, first of all, we had discussion on summer school appointment staffs, and it was tabled because we had one instructional aid appointment identified for placement at River Cities High School, and we didn't have an answer at that time for what that meant, but I think we'll find that later in this meeting. Our first consent agenda item is the committee recommends, and I move to approve the 4 2017 summer technology support appointments. The committee recommends, and I move to approve the 2 professional staff appointments for the 2017-18 school year. 3, the committee recommends, and I move to approve the 2 support staff appointments. 4, the committee recommends, and I move to approve the 2 professional staff resignations. 5, the committee recommends, and I move to approve the 3 support staff resignations. 6, the committee recommends, and I move to approve the 2 non-represented certified staff resignations. The committee, 7, the committee recommends, and I move to approve the 1 support staff early retirement. On policies, number 8, the committee recommends, and I move to approve board policy 426, Homeless Education Program and Board Policy 426 Rule, Homeless Education Program Procedures, and this is for second reading. 9, the committee recommends and I move to approve the Board Policy 345.45, Promotion, Retention of Kindergarten, 4th and 8th grade students. This is also for second reading. 10, the committee recommends and I move to approve the approval of non-resident students' request to attend Wisconsin Rapids Public Schools under the open enrollment law, pending a review of discipline records and special needs services. 11, the committee recommends and I move to approve resident student request to attend non-resident school district under the open enrollment law, pending a review of discipline records and special needs services. And we have 47 that are looking to come into the district. We have 81 that are looking to leave the district, but out of that, 24 are virtual. And they just can go anywhere they want in the state, so some of them are quite far from Wisconsin Rapids. 12, the committee recommends and I move to approve administrators and non-represented staff handbook to include the ethics discussed. They were pretty minimal, but we just wanted to clean it up. 13, the committee recommends and I move to approve the 2016-17 wage increase of 0.12% for school psychologists retroactive to the beginning of the 2016 school year, and a 27-18 wage increase of 1.2% effective July 1st, 2017. Forgetting that. 14, the committee recommends and I move to approve 2016-17 wage increase of 0.12% for school nurses retroactive to the beginning of the 2016-17 school year, and a 2017-18 wage increase of 1.26% effective July 1st, 2017. We do have 4 nurses. 15, the committee recommends and I move to approve of a benefit adjustment for school nurses to take effect on September 1st, 2017, which provides 100% board payment of the premium for single or family dental insurance and 100% board payment of the premium for term life insurance coverage equal to the earnings of the individual employee's previous year's salary rounded to the next highest thousand. Everybody has term life insurance except the teachers, so we were just bringing this group up with everyone else. Dental, we now pay $43. That'll go up to $108 for 100% of that dental. On number 16, the committee recommends, and I move to approve a 2016-17 wage increase of 0.12% for computer technicians, retroactive to July 1st, 2016, and a 2017-18 wage increase of 1.2% effective July 1, 2017. We have 4 in that position. 17, a motion by, the committee recommends and I move to approve a benefit adjustment for computer technicians to take effect on September 1st, 2017, which provides 100% board payment of the premium for single or family dental insurance. The dental insurance is currently at the 95% level. 18, motion, the committee recommends I move to approve a 2016-17 wage increase of 0.12% for the PAC director, retroactive to July 1st, 2016, and a 2017-18 wage increase of 1.26% effective July 1, 2017. 19, the committee recommends and I move to approve a 2016-17 wage increase of 0.12% for the network manager and systems manager, retroactive to July 1st, 2016, and a 2017-18 wage increase of 1.26% effective July 1, 2017. Number 20, the committee recommends and I move to approve a 2017-18 wage increase of 1.26% effective July 1, 2017 for the instructional software support specialist. 21, the committee recommends and I move to approve a 2017-18 wage increase of 1.2% effective July 1st, 2017 for the high school athletic director, and that's because he was a new hire and with his new salary that 0.26% was, or 1.2% was already included. Updates and reports. We're going to be looking at athletic co-curricular pay in the next couple of meetings. And we did table, does anyone anything held out? All those wages were just the CPI, bringing them up. Okay?
If we can find more money, I would hold it up.
I do have one on PS10, that 47 in, that does not include our 6603s, correct?
No.
That's just...
Does not include, correct.
Right, okay.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have motion and a second to approve everything Sandy read. PS 21. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion's carried.
Okay, and we're looking at, in the future, to look at the retirement benefits section for the school psychologists. What happened in 2007, we had that for retirement, that was all changed. We no longer have anybody that qualifies under that change that came about in 2007. So we're looking at either alternative language, which instead define the current health benefit level, or alternately, the second option would be to replace the current language altogether with new language to provide the school psychologist with the same health retirement benefit which is currently provided to teachers. So we've got options 1 or 2. We haven't decided what that will be, but that's coming up in the next month or so. And with that, and we were adjourned at 6:50. No, we started at 5:30. So with that, I move that the minutes be approved as printed. Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the Personnel Services Committee meeting minutes of May 1st, 2017. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Minutes are approved. Thank you, Sandy. Next, we have the Educational Services Committee. Ann.
Thank you, John. The Educational Services Committee also met on May 1st, 2017, and we had no public comment. We had 6 consent agenda items, and the first one was about Lincoln High School agenda planner. Second was East Junior High School agenda planner, and the third one was a Rams agenda planner. We talked about gifted and talented educational services plan and the art acquisition and the 2017-18 professional development plan. Does anyone want any of those held out? Okay, well, we'll go back to the secondary agenda planners for 2017-18. Ron Rasmussen, who is our principal of Lincoln High School, presented revisions being recommended for the 2017-18 agenda planner for Lincoln High School. In addition to the changes listed in Attachment A, Mr. Rasmussen also introduced an additional change to the academic integrity section on page 4 to add consequence language for academic dishonesty. Patty Ritchie, who's the associate principal of East Junior High School, reviewed changes being proposed for the 2017-18 agenda planner for East as set out in Attachment B. And Kathy Stebbins-Hintz, who's our Director of Curriculum and Instruction, explained that there were no substantive changes proposed for the Wisconsin Rapids Area Middle School, or RAMS, planner as set out in Attachment C. Then we went on to our Gifted and Talented Education Services, or GATES plan. And Kelly Bluell, Lincoln High School math teacher, and Tina Wallner, principal of Grove Elementary School, were present to review recommended changes to the GATES plan. The GATES committee was convened to review the plan and suggest changes, and the Council for Instructional Improvement, CII committee, also reviewed the recommended changes and expressed unanimous support of the updated plan. Ms. Bluell and Ms. Wallner introduced the GATES website to the committee. This website was developed for interested stakeholders and contains a host of information and resources uniquely tailored to meet the needs of staff, students, parents, and the public. The committee was very impressed with the work done on the GATES plan and the website, and expressed our appreciation for the hard work of all involved. Then we went on to the art acquisition. In March of 2017, the Board of Education approved the Wisconsin Rapids Public Schools art curriculum, including their mission, vision, and instructional practices and curriculum maps. The K-12 art department has also devoted time to identifying purchases to support their curriculum. Patricia Larson, the CII subcommittee chairperson for art, was present to explain the department's acquisition proposals as set out in Attachment D and to answer any questions. And the price of that acquisition would be $96,275.19. We continued with the professional development plan for 2017 and 18. The recommended professional development plan for 2017-18, as set out in attachment F, was created with input from the CII, the Quality Educator Committee, or QEC, the CII subcommittee chairs, and the administrative team. Before creating this plan, each group reviewed the WRPS 2017-18 strategic plan initiatives and discussed progress on goals set for 2016-17. The committee applauded the efforts of the staff involved in developing such a comprehensive plan that supports the work being done in our classrooms. So the committee recommends, and I move that we approve ES1 through ES6.
Okay, we have motion and second to approve ES1 through ES6. Can we have roll call, please, Ruth?
Mrs. Lee?
Yes.
Mrs. Rail?
Yes.
Mr. Davis?
Yes.
Mrs. Medina?
Yes.
Mrs. Hett?
Yes.
Mr. Krings?
Yes.
Mr. Bembo?
Yes.
Thank you, Maureen.
And we went on to updates, and the first topic was about professional days for 2017-18. Professional days are a valuable component in maintaining instructional excellence for district students. The committee reviewed attachment G, which reflects the schedule for planned professional days for the 2017-18 school year, with the elimination of the 7.5-hour individual professional development requirement for teachers. An additional structured professional development day was scheduled into the teacher calendar. Then we discussed student travel, and Ms. Devins-Hintz explained that 22 students from Lincoln High School will be traveling to Switzerland, Italy, southern France, and Barcelona, Spain to experience art and architecture from June 13th through June 23rd, 2017. Students will be chaperoned by Janine Clement and Dustin Anderson, who both are WRPS art teachers. The committee recommends, and I move that we approve the minutes for the May 1st, 2017 Educational Services Committee meeting.
Okay, we have motion and second to approve the meeting minutes of the Educational Services Committee of May 1st, 2017. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Minutes are approved. Thank you, Ann. Next, we'll move on to agenda referrals, information requests. Anything? Okay, we can move on to our legislative agenda. We're very fortunate tonight to have Senator Patrick Testin and Representative Scott Krug in attendance. So welcome. Thanks for coming.
Oh, thank you. Glad to be here.
Glad to have you here. So
yeah,
what's going on in Madison?
Not much. It's pretty. No, I'm just kidding. It's we are in the heights of the state budget right now, obviously. So it's going to be crunch time. The governor in February introduced his proposal for the state budget. The legislature has been taking a hard look at it for the last 3 months. Well, for the next month and a half, hopefully, we'll be done by the end of June. It's always the goal. You never know. I mean, that's gets to be a little contentious sometimes. For the first time in my tenure in Madison, education is not the most controversial issue. It's kind of nice to not have to have the argument. The governor came forward with a bold proposal of $650-some million into the K through 12 system. The legislature to this point has pretty much left it alone. The biggest part of the $650 million, I'm sure you're aware of already, is the increase in categorical aid per student in each of the 2 years of the budget. So it's an additional $200 per student in the first year. And then when you get up to that level of $400, and it's an additional $200 on top of that for the second year of the state budget. So those dollars, $650-some per student over the course of the budget per student, be quite an influx of cash into districts that are much in need of it at this point. There are two challenges with it right now. I think that the legislature has kind of taken up to figure out where we're going to go with it. Part of the governor's $650 million depends on the state switching to a self-insurance plan. And as you might be aware, the Joint Finance Committee will be talking about that this week. And I don't think the Joint Finance Committee is going to make the switch to the self-insurance plan which puts a little bit of a ding into the governor's overall number of $650 million because $20 million in the first year of the budget depended on that switch to self-insurance and $10 million in the second year depended on that. So the legislature's going to have to go back through, see if they can find that $30 million to try to keep the governor's number whole or whatever changes they may come up with on that side of it. The second area of concern I think I have with that number is the governor put a provision in that all school districts had to certify compliance with Act 10. Back in the day when we started working on Act 10 and giving school districts that authority for plan design implementation, some got really creative, and school districts like Port Edwards, for example, wouldn't currently be eligible under the governor's proposal for the increased aid because of their creative approach to the tools we gave them under Act 10. So we're working hard to make sure that the governor's aware of the impact that that provision has on local school districts. I don't think the legislature is inclined to hold that provision to fruition as they go through the discussions. On top of that categorical aid, there are some significant investments in mental health and mental health assistance for school districts, something we've been working on for a long time, trying to make sure that teachers aren't always saddled with that social service side of the job and get back to what they're doing the best in teaching students. So for example, each year of the state budget, there's $5.5 million for a school district through DPI to do some mental health coordination and improvements in their systems. And I think the biggest point to take away from the state budget is in education, as I mentioned, how quiet it is in the discussions right now because obviously transportation is kind of taking up the bulk of the conversation. And B, to understand that if the governor's proposal passes as is, that the investment in education would be the highest it's ever been in state history. And I know with numbers in the state budget, it doesn't sound like a big deal. But what I do then is I go back and look at the percentage of state aid. So for example, back in 2009, I think percentage of state aid was 65% that the state funded. We've gone down as low as 61 to 62% during 12 and 13. The governor's budget brings up the state's share of investment into K through 12 to 65% again. So I think that's a significant number. I'm interested in taking questions and comments and concerns you may have, but also turn it over to Senator Testin to discuss some things that he's been working on as well.
Can I just quickly back up to the self-funding?
Yeah.
The health insurance, is that just for state employees? Or
Yeah, that was a provision the governor wanted to have Wisconsin basically be the insurer for all state employees. Other states have taken on the self-insurance role. Some have shown success in savings, others haven't. So the Joint Finance Committee is kind of leery about the savings actually presenting themselves as the governor states they will. So yeah, he put together the proposal based on some of those savings that he thought would be there. And I don't think Joint Finance agrees with those numbers. So
that wouldn't incorporate like school districts and cities and counties and that type of thing?
Right,
just be
no, just state employees.
Okay.
Go ahead, Senator. All right.
On the school accountability plan, it looked like they worked pretty hard at putting that plan together. They had quite a few people involved in that plan. And now the legislature wants to impose themselves and I think rewrite the plan. Do you go along with that?
I think in the end, I don't think the legislature as a whole is going to approve that concept. I don't think the state Senate is going to take it up. I've heard from Senator Olson that it's a non-starter for them, but we did vote on that plan last week in the State Assembly to give us a little more input into it. There's always this back and forth with DPI as to what role legislative oversight should play and what role the legislature should have. And the bifurcated executive powers that we have in the state of Wisconsin, DPI is kind of on an island. So there's always that back and forth whether the legislature should be involved or DPI should be solo. So I always think that with the committee structures we have at the state level, I think it's appropriate for us to be as involved as we possibly can. We've had members involved in that plan earlier, so it's not just beginning of...
Well, Luther Olson supports the plan. He's been on the education committee.
Sure, right. And we've got, Jeremy Thiesfeld in the Assembly has a different version. Luther Olson has a different idea. So, to the point that we should be more involved, I think we should. But I think DPI has actually been open to allowing members to attend as they needed.
Right, but I think they had a 4-month period where it was open for input, and I think where they got one.
Yeah, I think
just one in a 4-month period, and now when it passes, they all of a sudden want to become more involved.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay.
As far as healthcare spending, it's something I've taken a personal interest in because I'm getting to the point where I need more healthcare.
Aren't we all?
We spend 2.5 times what the rest of the industrial world spends on our healthcare insurance, we get half the results that other countries get from their healthcare as far as keeping people healthy, delivering healthcare. That's not a very good system. I remember down at Madison some time ago, I got a 20-year plaque, and I said to you all then, each year, healthcare spending goes up double or triple what inflation is. Isn't there some way that we can slow this down to make our healthcare system more competitive? And I ask you now, isn't there something that Wisconsin can do to get a better deal? We spend 17% of our gross national product on healthcare. The other nations, the closest, is 7%. That 10% sure is a lot of money that we are evidently not spending wisely. What can we do?
So, Larry, the answer I give you is probably something you and I will probably not agree on, but I think in the course of our state employees, as I get to deal with healthcare, I don't get to deal with it on a big scale like Congress does. But I'm of the hopes that at some point we can help our state employees understand that we want them to be better consumers of healthcare, not just better users of healthcare, and to help them understand that we can create a system where the state acts as a partner to fund maybe a higher deductible plan with an HSA to give them options to understand that when it comes time to consume or to use, they understand that they got to be better consumers of healthcare. And I think that's one of the challenges we have as a society is that we're not great consumers of healthcare, but we're great users of healthcare. And I think that that dynamic change would really go a long way to fixing some of the problems. So you look at our state budget the last 7 years, and we've increased Medicaid spending by $2.5 billion. And that's the biggest chunk of every new dollar of GPR that becomes available goes right into Medicaid services. So I think one of the other things that Congress is working on that the state's done a great job at before is HRSP. Something we had before, the Affordable Care Act came along. We had the high-risk share pool that my predecessor was a huge fan of and that lots of Wisconsinites took advantage of, where it's a consumer-based system for high-risk individuals to get some assistance but understand that they have to be better consumers. So the way Congress passed this bill last week would actually give Wisconsin to do what it does best, and run Badger Care, to run senior care, to run the HRSP program. Wisconsin's always been a leader in healthcare services, and I think the changes that Congress is moving forward are beneficial to the systems we've had in place in Wisconsin, where they might not be so much for other states in the country, though. So I think we're on the right path. I think Wisconsin's done well at this, but we do have to kind of change that dynamic to be better consumers instead of users.
I've been comparing the quality of healthcare lately with some of my own issues, and I find it very difficult to demand what is quality healthcare. In Medicare, which I'm part of, they, as part of the Affordable Care Act, which I don't know if that's gone or what's happening to it, but they demand that a hospital treat you so that you don't come back in.
Sure.
And if you come back in within 2 or 3 weeks, they don't pay.
Yeah.
If you know, 19% is what the administrative cost will be for charges, and if you charge more than that, you don't get paid.
Right.
That's the kind of it's not more freedom, it's more conscious control of the healthcare industry. You can't spend 29% for administrative costs. It's too much. It's 7% in Canada, it's 9% in these other countries. We've got to fix that. Otherwise, how do we go and get quality care? And how do you know what's quality care? If you ask them questions like, what does it cost for a procedure, doctor visit or whatever, you get all kinds of answers.
Sure.
I've tried it for years. It's almost impossible to demand good care and get it unless I don't know how to do it. I'm going tomorrow to get some stuff done in Madison, and we've got a mold that I have to look at on my own. And I've studied it. I've read up. I'm ready to make this doctor visit, and I'm going to push him to do the best that he can do with this particular thing. But it is not easy, and we don't get the tools to do that And I hope that you in the legislature can give us some tools. You know, this is not 2.5 times what the rest of the world pays is not good enough. It's got to be less than that, in my opinion.
I'd give Senator Testin.
Sure.
You have a solution.
Let the new guy work for a while here.
Well, first off, I want to thank you for the opportunity to come here and hear some of the issues that you're facing and how we can be partners and help. As you can imagine, I'm new on the job. I've been doing this for 5 months. It seems like it's just been a few weeks. Time flies when you're having fun, or appropriately, it's been called that you're drinking from a fire hose when you first get there. And I think that's very appropriate. Because as someone I thought I watched state government pretty closely going in, being there now, I realized that I was just scratching the surface, and there's a lot I don't know. So I've been relying on people like Representative Krug and our local officials to get brought up to speed on the number of different issues that you're facing. Kind of touch on some of the things that I've been trying to focus on and work on early on in my term. I'm the chair of the Workforce Development Committee in the State Senate, and I think every day we're talking about the worker shortage that we have in the state. Just today alone, we have 100,000 job openings on the Job Center of Wisconsin. We have 45,000 resumes posted. So even if we matched every resume to a proper job, that still leaves 55,000 job openings in the state. Even though our state unemployment rate's down to 3.4%, we have the 8th highest labor participation rate in the country. Well, what that tells me is that we can do better. And I think that starts in the classroom, which is why I was excited to see that Governor Walker's proposal for the increase in education, because if we're not training our future workforce in the classroom, we're doing a disservice to our state down the road. And obviously, too, with an aging demographic in this state, by 2040, we're going to have 1.4 million people in this state who are 65 or older. That's a 58% increase compared to today. So we need to do everything that we can to make sure that we're training up that future workforce and we keep them here in the state of Wisconsin. But we're also developing talent pipelines to find a student's aptitude and give them pathways for success in different trades and options. Been a big proponent of things like fabrication labs and working with one of my colleagues in the State Assembly, Representative Cole. In the next week or two, we're hammering out the final details, but we're going to be introducing the bill that I think you'll appreciate and should be helpful for all of you to raise the revenue limits for school districts for improvements specifically for workforce development. And those improvements would be, we label it as workforce development improvements, which would include workstations, machinery, equipment, anything that supports a vocational or technical education. I think that's been one of the clarion calls that I've heard from employers all around, not just the 24th Senate District, but the state of Wisconsin, is that there is a huge demand for skilled workers, but they can't find the bodies to fill them. So if we can help our school districts out to give them the tools that they need to implement these things like fabrication labs, I think that's a win-win, not only for our school districts, but for our students as well.
I work in the paper industry, struggle to attract, I won't say good help because we get good help, but we don't hire like we used to where we'd hire a group of people and you'd weed them out. It just doesn't exist anymore. So when you bring in 2 people, they better work because that's all you have. And it's just a different dynamic with the millennials. You know, I heard a story last week about a college graduate getting offered $75,000 a year and 2 weeks of vacation. And he asked if that was in addition to his 2 weeks at Christmas. And the employer said, well, no, but we'll give you $65,000 and 4 weeks vacation, and he took it. So that tells you the value of time off for someone in a much younger person. They value time off to that point that they would pay $5,000 for a week of vacation. Sure. So you think that's not my generation's view of it, but that's the different dynamic now that the employers are facing, and it's not a glamorous position. They're around-the-clock jobs. They're dirty. It's the pay is not so much out of whack like it used to be that, you attract people to come in. So it's just...
Well, and you hit the nail on the head there. And I grew up in Marinette, Wisconsin, which is nowhere north of Green Bay on the Wisconsin-UT border. And I came from a blue-collar family. And in fact, I went to school at UWSP, and I'd spend my summers back home working in factories and lumberyards, whether it was a weekend shift working 312s and then working at UPS loading trucks at night during the week to help pay for my school. And I think we really need to promote that there is dignity in work, and that we can show people, especially our up-and-comers, that you can get a good paying job if you work with your hands. One of the things that we've done in my office that we started back in February is a series called On the Job that we modeled after Representative Jarko, who represents, is it the Balsam Lake or Rice Lake area? Balsam Lake area, where I go work at an employer for an entire day, not just to show up, take photos, and point and smile and look pretty, but to actually throw on some steel-toed boots and get my hands dirty. You know, just this past week, I was working with Altman Construction at a site in Stevens Point, and it was actually really informative for me because I learned a lot that I didn't know. We framed up walls, and when I got there, we just had a cement slab, and by the time we left, we had all the walls framed in for this development. And you're talking to these guys, these are guys fresh out of high school that, they're making decent money, 18, 20 bucks an hour. Their employers helping them go into apprenticeship programs and trades programs, provided that they stay for a few years after they finish that, so the employer is buying into their workforce. But that's one of the things that we're trying to do and show, one, that we've got really great employers here in the 24th Senate District, and two, there's opportunity out there abound. If I can do it, anyone can do it.
I'd like to make the comment, though, that I think this goes back to earlier than that, and that's the classroom. And we have to do something to support our teachers. You talk about dignity in work. That's something that our teachers have not gotten the respect that they deserve, and they haven't gotten the attention they deserve for the hard work that they do. The problem is now that we're having a deficit and trying to find people just to fill these teaching spots. We need to focus on education to the point where we can get teachers, because if we don't have the teachers to teach these people to learn these great other ideas that we have, we're not going to be any farther ahead than we've got to focus on our education in a different way.
Well, I agree wholeheartedly, and there's no doubt there's a teacher shortage in the state, there's a doctor shortage in the state, there's a nursing shortage in the state, which all ties back to the aging demographic that, we have more people leaving the workforce than we have those entering the workforce. But again, to your point, it starts in the classroom.
And our teachers have been greatly disrespected by the way the state has handled a lot of the situations. That's a problem.
That's something that, as a former teacher, I feel quite deeply. Act 10 did some things that were helpful at the state level, but the process disrespected teachers. And they still feel that way, and I still feel that way. So how can we change that? I don't know. We try our best to keep morale up here, but when you're taking, it's really hard. What can we take away this year? Class sizes have grown. Gifted and talented program right in the minutes used to be a robust program. Now it's just bare bones. We just let's kind of train the teachers and see how they do, rather than actually having the program for those kids who don't learn the same. You got to do it differently with them, but we don't have it because it slithers away. We used to have a librarian in every school. Now there's 1 in 5. One librarian has to spread themselves over 5 or 6 schools. That disrespect we have a reputation of not respecting our educators. We have to change that. Otherwise, the finest and best are not going to come to Wisconsin. They're going to go to Minnesota, or they're going to go wherever they can get that feeling. I have 2 in my family that I consider the finest and best. And when I ask them about Wisconsin, their comments are not very good. We need to change that.
And it seems like every time we talk, Scott, I mentioned the decisions that you guys make in Madison, we have to implement. And you might get some flack, but at the end of the day, we're the ones that hear the most about it.
Yes.
The voucher school expansion has hit our district hard. And when I see more expansion on the horizon for vouchers, I wonder, where does it end? We're expected to transport students for private schools. We receive nothing for that. The private schools don't pay for that. The tax dollars that go, we're forced to give our teachers a 0.12% raise, $64 a year. It's insulting. But the voucher schools can take all those dollars to increase the pay to their staff, and there's no accountability there. So, I read something recently about having a state referendum. What's your feeling on a state referendum about voucher schools? To see really what the populace of the state thinks.
So, when you talk about a statewide decision affecting individual communities' aspects and programs, I think the biggest thing that Act 10 did for this board is it gave you even more flexibility. It gave you even more choices to make for implementation, for design of programs, for all the things you didn't necessarily have before because of binding arbitration that you're kind of hemmed in by not being able to do before. So now when you talk about those increased flexibilities and the implementation of this new entity, this choice program, it's not a mandate that people leave your district to go to a different program. So, we hear this all the time. We've had this conversation before about how the choice program is destroying districts and how the choice program is forcing people to close their doors. It's a choice program. It's not a mandate program. It's not saying that students have to go to a private school. It gives students that option if they choose to make that choice. I mean, that's
really subsidizing private education.
But you're talking choice and vouchers. School choice has been a lot longer before vouchers were.
Well, the parental choice program is what the title of the program is.
Yeah,
so it's a choice program.
Yeah, but the voucher part of it is the part of it that we have a problem with, and that is that the original intent for the voucher program was for economically disabled people.
It still is. There's still income limits in place.
Yeah, but we're now, the last report said that like 58% of the voucher schools are people that are well above this income level that really aren't, whether that, the biggest problem we have with vouchers is there's no accountability. If you're giving them $1 of my tax money, public money, they need to be accountable to the same standards that we are. That means they need to give the tests. That means they need to have open records requests. That means all of their finances need to be open to the public. Otherwise, we have what we have, these failing schools and these voucher schools, we see them all the time where they're, you see about some guy running off with $50,000 down, some of those stories. There's no account, we have to have accountability. You talked about the accountability there. That same accountability, the same thing, the same federal mandates. If they're going to have voucher schools and they're supposed to get, now we're supposed to give them possibly title money. We're talking at the federal government level that the Title I and Title II money that we could give them, they should get some of that. Again, we realize there's the vouchers there. That's fine. But what our biggest problem is the need to have accountability that we have. That means that if they spend one penny of our tax dollars for their schools for increasing it, they should have to follow the same 1.2% increases for their teachers, just like we do.
And, to your point, that was AB1 last session. That was the first bill out of the gates. We're trying to get AB1 done for the school accountability bill. But the thing, it languished. We fought back and forth even within our own caucus to try to figure out how to hammer that down.
The biggest problem we have is that there's no accountability, so that they can take that money, and I've read stories across the state, and I brought them through our legislative agendas, talking about where this district in Fond du Lac, every teacher got a $23,000 increase because of the voucher money. And you hear and read the stories, which, that there's purposes to that, but then when we send money over to the Assumption School, okay, now they're teaching religious classes with our tax dollars. How is that separated? That's what some of the people that they come and talk to us, how do they get away with teaching their religious education using public money and have the religious doctrines in their education? That isn't our purpose, but our purpose is the accountability that they don't have to give a test. They don't have to mandate all of the unfunded mandates that we have to deal with, and that's the other. The second biggest thing is please stay away from unfunded mandates.
Well, you're not going to like it, but I got an unfunded mandate bill to give to you. But Katie, go ahead and I'll get back.
Well, and the fact is that you're talking about now going back and fixing something after the fact. How does this go through in the first place? Why do you go and approve something like that and then figure out how we're going to fix this mess? It's a mess. It's not fair. It's not right. And if you're saying, well, we got this bill, and well, that should have happened before you put these vouchers in to say, well, we've got to make sure it's right before we do it, not pass the bill and then let's read
So
it.
the voucher program was created over 25 years ago. I mean, that's nothing that Senator Testin and I had an opportunity to put accountability measures into place before it started. I mean, we get to deal with
But
what
you
we get to deal
expanded it
with.
to our district without thinking about the
And that
impact that
happened
it
in the
was going
last
to have.
5 years, so.
2 budgets ago, we did expand it statewide.
Right.
We put a cap on it. We left income limits in place.
Right.
We made sure that not more than 1% of your district at the time could matriculate out to those schools. You know, in the last state budget they voted against, we didn't get accountability done, and the last state budget did increase that 1%, 2%, 3%, 2%, 5%, you know, to 10%, and then afterwards to take the caps off in the next 10 to 12 years. So that gives that opportunity to take 98% of the dollars that are spent on K through 12 and put them into things that we could talk about positively here today, or to take 1.5% of it and put it into a different program that we're still working on developing and creating. I think, the point is, yeah, we've got some Band-Aids that have been ripped off in the last 6-7 years, but it's time to start looking forward to what's in the next plan. What are we coming up with? We haven't even talked about, the youth options program and the career options program merging and combining, and the state finally giving money to school districts to fund that, to get students, high school, to get college credit before they get to college. And we're not talking about the opportunity to freeze tuition or cut tuition to the next biennium by giving students a chance to graduate in 3.5 years instead of 4.5 years. I mean, there's plenty of positive things to talk about in education besides the same 2 things that come up at every conversation we have. And I get that those things we're not going to agree on.
Those take a huge amount of our budget.
But I don't think they are taking a huge amount of your budget, and that's where we could disagree on. But when you talk about the $650 over the next 2 years per pupil, it makes up a big difference of things that you don't have the ability to do right now. That's something we should be talking about positively.
Much better than it's been.
It is, absolutely it is, and that's why it's something that, Governor Walker finally feels comfortable going into a school and saying hello to people. I mean, that's a good thing. I mean, it's turning the corner on things that happened in the past that we can start talking about what can happen in the future. So
and understand, you come in here, you want to tell us the good things, and we're used to dealing with the bad things.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, granted, we do like to hear about the good things, and we do appreciate that. But the day-to-day things, the September 1st start date, I read last week where the governor said there's no way we'll approve that.
Yeah.
But wait, can we start? Our voucher schools can start earlier, and we have to bust those kids when our kids aren't in school. Doesn't really seem right. Things like that. Those are the things we deal with.
Yeah.
So the good news, glad to hear it, because we need the good news.
Yeah, and you do, and that's what, I think, for a guy like Senator Testin to take some fire here too is really good, because you can feel the conversation that we've had the last few years, and I appreciate the input, and I really do, and I think, as you remember what we do in the legislature is I'm 1 out of 99, Senator Testin's 1 out of 33. Some of us can vote against budgets, some of us can vote against bills, and we can come back home and say, I tried. Or some of us can go and introduce new bills and new items and new agendas and, try to move the ball forward. And I think that's the hardest thing in the legislature, is to try to accomplish positive, instead of being somebody who sits in the legislature and just pushes the no button and says, what can I do? I mean, that's the thing I think people miss about what we do in the legislature, is it's a lot harder to do and to accomplish than it is just to push no and to say, well, maybe next time. That maybe next time doesn't help you at all. Sometimes that we can get the good things going, that's helpful. It's incremental growth and it's incremental positive message. But if I keep coming back and saying, nope, couldn't do it, nope, couldn't do it, you're further and further behind every session. So, I mean, we do what we can, just like you guys do. It's you try to make it better than a zero-sum game each time. And that's what I think at least this budget does for the first time in a while. So, thank you.
And John, you mentioned unfunded mandates, and I've heard from other school districts and administrators, and what I've been asking them is, if you could send me, your top 5 unfunded mandates and email them to me, we'll be more than happy to look into them. Because I probably got it right now, actually. Yeah. And I'll leave my cards too, so that way, if you ever have questions for me or anything like that, never hesitate to reach out to me. My phone's always on, the door's always open, and I'll sit down and talk to anyone.
Well, we do really appreciate you coming in. I'm sure it's not fun to sit and have darts thrown at you, and do the best we can too. So we do very much appreciate you coming in and sharing what you shared tonight. And our meetings are the second Monday of every month. You're absolutely welcome to come in at any time and share anything you'd like.
And I think on the other side of it too is anything you need legislative updates on. Anytime. I mean, if you want to know where joint finance is going with a certain provision in the state budget, let us know. I mean, that's what we're paying attention to the next 6 weeks exclusively, is item by item through joint finance and how things are going. So if you see something coming up that you'd like to put a bug into our ear on, give us a call before the vote even, just so we can talk to joint finance and say, whoa, this isn't what we need. So I mean, that the interactivity, I mean, it goes both ways. You guys can be as involved as you possibly want on day-to-day stuff in Madison. We're there every day.
So to keep up with everything.
And I open up the floodgates, and I tell folks, if there's anything you want to see done differently or better down in Madison, let me know. I know it's crazy. It's a crazy notion, but no. But seriously, I mean, like I said, I know what I know in the grand scheme of things. It's not a whole lot. You guys are here doing the day-to-day. You see challenges that I don't necessarily see from a 30,000-foot view. And so if there are things that we can do better or differently, let us know. Let Scott know. I mean,
or let Pat know.
Yeah, let me know. And I'd be more than happy to sit down with you anytime, hash it out, talk it out, and see what we can do.
I just want to say, I know that at one time Scott voted against the governor's budget, and the governor took revenge on him and didn't fund some things for the Stevens Point University.
So
there's things to,
We're recorded right now, so we won't talk about the whole impact of that decision. So, yeah.
But I mean, you stuck your neck out, so thank you for that.
Well, and what you guys are doing down there is for us. I mean, be the first to admit, Madison helps us or hurts us, but we can't do anything without Madison. So,
If you could continue funding that you're doing in these 2 years beyond, that would be a significant advantage, rather than having us to chop,
Yeah.
which we don't enjoy, and it's not fair.
Good budgets are always easier, right? I mean, this is the first budget since I've been around that we actually had some money to work with, and a lot of people say that makes it an easier budget. But in some respects, it makes it tougher too, because then everybody comes to the door saying, well, I need this, I need this, I need this, I need this. So it goes both ways. In tough budget times, we know that there's certain things we can do, and we are less flexible in what we can do. But in better times, we've got a little bit more flexibility. And I think this is one where, like I said, for education to be kind of flying under the radar right now because of transportation, that's a great thing for this district and for other districts in the 72nd and the 24th. Is that it's not the prime discussion point, that other legislators who aren't as friendly aren't out there throwing darts at the overall budget process. They're looking at how to fix transportation and taxes. Education is just kind of moving where the governor wanted it to go. And I think that's what we're trying to do right now, is just keep it under.
Our communities have changed a great deal. Our major employers have shrank. Yep. Our poverty levels are on the increase. We've got over 200 homeless students in this district. Who would have thought that 10 years ago? Right. To say that, over 200 of our students are legally listed as homeless. So, it's a different challenge. And
so I thank you for your time.
Thank you.
I get both of your updates as far as in our emails. So, I mean, if there's anything that comes up, because I do the legislative update for the board. And then we use WASB too. I mean, they kind of stay on top of what's happening down there too and give those updates.
And I was going to come back to that, and I'm sorry, I won't take up any more time after this, but I think for the first time that I've known and that others could probably think of, my financial literacy bill is going to be coming up for a public hearing pretty soon in the legislature, in the assembly on the 24th. And Wisconsin Rapids Public Schools has done a great job of financial literacy, and the governor is excited about everything that goes on with financial literacy here. But my bill actually says the rest of the districts in the state, the 26% of you that don't do something, we're going to mandate that you do this. We're going to ask you to put a curriculum in place. And it's fun for me to sit here and say that WASB's not going to vote you against it. I mean, that's something that I could be excited about. Is that conversation over the last few years in this bill has gotten to the point where we're at least positive on moving something in a different direction. So I'm glad WASB's been there to be helpful, and your input to them is even more helpful. So it's good.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. If you don't mind excusing us, I'm nice outside and we're going to play with the kids. So.
Nice meeting you.
Yes.
Oh, likewise. Hopefully we stay in touch.
Got your card right here.
Okay, did you have anything else to add to the legislative?
I think we put it.
Okay, we can move on to the bill.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, I would make a motion that the receipts be noted and the bills be paid as printed.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have motion in several seconds that the receipts be noted and bills paid as printed. We have roll call, please, Maureen.
Mrs. Medina?
Yes.
Mr. Cranes?
Yes.
Mr. Davis?
Yes.
Mrs. Rayon?
Yes.
Mrs. Lee?
Yes.
Mrs. Hett?
Yes.
Mr. Bemble?
Yes.
Thank you, Maureen. We can move into new business. First item, possible action on employee appointments, resignations, and retirement requests.
There are two separate items on a sheet that I handed out prior to the start of the meeting. The first comes back to what Ms. had reference from our Personnel Services Committee meeting last Monday related to summer school. There was one question in particular related to the recommended appointment for Nicole Crowley as an instructional aide. The location was listed as Washington/River Cities High School. Sandy, what that relates to is we have a summer archery program, and the archery is held in the gym at Old Children's Choice or our current River Cities High School. It's an elementary program. They hold it in that location just to have the equipment left up and have that as a separate secured location because of the nature of archery. So the kids are actually bused from Washington over to the River Cities location to do the archery program.
Well, who would have thought that?
Yeah. Great, thanks.
So with that, the administration would recommend that the board approve the summer school appointments as listed.
Okay, I make a motion to approve the 2017 Summer School Support Program support staff appointments as listed.
Okay, we have motion and second to approve the 2017 Summer School Program support staff appointments as listed. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
The second item listed, as long as we were going to have space in the agenda today, we did have an additional teacher resignation come forward just earlier today. So unfortunately, we do have to recommend acceptance of the resignation of Ann Novitska from her special education teaching position at Grove. Ann is going to be relocating to a different part of the state and has accepted a teaching job in another school district.
This is another example of, this slate having to replace somebody when there's a shortage.
I'd make a motion to approve the recommendation for the professional staff resignation of Ann Novitska.
Second.
Okay, we have motion and second to approve the professional staff resignation of Ann Novitska. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, next we can move on to discussion and possible action to approve the plan and procedures developed to resolve Office for Civil Rights case. I won't read off the number.
You want me to read off the number?
Because I'm hopeful there's only one.
Yes, I agree. You probably got a pretty thick packet in the update last week. I'm not going to go through everything line item by line item, but you saw there were 4 things that we've done so far, and then there's about 4 more things we need to do to kind of close this thing up. And the biggest thing we're facing right now is number 1 in that second list, which is provide evidence to OCR that the district has officially adopted a plan for new content. And we need to do that on or before June 10th, and we have to send them a report that the board and the district has adopted the plan for new content. In the update that you got, that was pretty much our plan with new content that we sent OCR. They approved all of it. There's really three different things in terms of the guidelines for the different types of staff that we have. The only difference really between the 3 is that one of them is for elementary teachers because we asked that they put a little biography on their page and their contact information, and the secondary, very similar contact information and their schedule for the day and then how to get a hold of them. So, and a little biography. So that's really the only big difference between all of them. Otherwise, they're all pretty much, if you read through them, line item by line item, they're pretty much the same. I guess with that, do you have any questions about any of them or any concerns? Or?
We never knew exactly what our deficit was with the complaint. Right. Is that true that they never really said, you have a complaint, fix it?
Pretty much. I mean, they gave us a couple of different in their initial,
we weren't doing the district to get one.
Yeah, I know that.
87.
Well, there's quite a few now in the state of Wisconsin. We were one of the first.
Last time we knew it was like 87 districts.
It's up there.
Same point.
But no, it wasn't really, there were a couple of things they identified in terms of a couple of small things. One was like a 504 coordinator wasn't listed. It was listed, but it was very it was buried in the website, it wasn't easily accessible. So there's a couple things I think they go through the website and they kind of check off and they say, hey, is this easily accessible, yes or no? No, it's not, okay, and they just kind of look at a couple things and say, you got to get your site up to speed or up to regulations. And they really didn't identify exactly what was there, but we've done a good job in getting it up to speed, and overall I think it's been a positive thing. We've learned a lot, and it's a better website for everybody. So,
but if they're complaining and they don't tell us what we're doing wrong, and we're supposed to fix it, and we spend a lot of time doing it.
It makes it interesting because I really don't know. I've been working a lot with Maureen, and we're trying to go back and forth on what we believe is what they're going to accept, and we really don't know because they haven't given us an outline or identified what exactly it is. So we're kind of just we're throwing things to the OCR and hope they approve it, and we'll go back. And so far they have. And it's worked out okay. So.
Okay, I would make a motion then to approve the plan for new content and procedures proposed by the administration to respond to OCR case number 05161217.
Okay, we have motion and second to approve the plan for new content and procedures proposed by the administration to respond to OCR case number 05161217. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Phil. Next, consideration and possible action to approve a 2016-17 and 17-18 wage increase settlement for the Wisconsin Rapids Education Association employee group. Colleen's not here tonight, so I'm guessing it's for you then, right?
Yeah, you bet. The negotiations committee did come to a tentative agreement with the WREA on a 2-year deal. The membership of WREA has ratified those two separate 1-year deals. And so the administration and the negotiations committee recommends that the board approve that tentative agreement that we have with WREA. And then I don't know if there are any specific details that the committee members would want to add to that, but I think it was a task, but I think we came to a good settlement, a good tentative agreement with WREA leadership in the end for a 2-year deal.
Well, I think just having done this now for a few years, it's difficult when you walk into a room and you're talking about $66 a year. You know, we all go to work to make money, and you know, in the end, I think it comes back to respect and value that people feel for what they do. So, you know, we try to make it known in many instances as we can that we absolutely value and appreciate our professional staff and all of our staff here in the district. And this is the world we live in today, so this is the world we have to negotiate in.
And I do think this is the two representatives that were here tonight, you know, it doesn't pay to argue with them because they are doing some good things. They are putting things back and giving us things. So and I appreciate that because we sure need them. But that is one issue that has been created, and there's nothing. Our hands are tied, and it puts us at a disadvantage with our staff when we want to support them, and we can't. So, but I appreciate the negotiations, and with that, I guess if there aren't any questions, I will make a motion to approve the Wisconsin Rapids Education Association 2016 contract year salary increase of 0.12% to base wages with an equal distribution as agreed upon in negotiations, and a 2017-18 contract salary year increase of 1.26% to base wages with an inverse proportional distribution as agreed upon in negotiations.
Second.
Okay, we have motion and second to approve the WREA 2016-17 contract year salary increase of 0.12% to base wages with an equal distribution as agreed upon in negotiations, and a 2017-18 contract salary year increase of 1.26% to base wages with an inverse proportional distribution as agreed upon in negotiations. We have roll call, please, Marie.
Mrs. Hutt?
Yes.
Mr. Krings?
Yes.
Mr. Bembo?
Yes.
Mrs. Medina?
Yes.
Mr. Davis?
Yes.
Mrs. Lee?
Yes.
Mrs. Rail?
Yes.
Thank you, Marie.
This is one of the things that Representative Krug was saying, that we had the tools. Act 10 was one of the tools. This was one tool that Act 10 did not give us any help on, is to work with our teachers and our staff as we feel appropriate, and that is the frustrating part. when we discuss that with them is that they'll pick out parts of Act 10 that are okay, but there are a lot of parts of Act 10. Parts of Act 10 did help us. I mean, we all realize that. But there are parts of it that made it more frustrating for us, in the fact that if we did want to give them a raise, we would have to go to referendum. Or I believe under the state law, if none of them are representative, then we would be able to, if they were no longer a union, I believe the law states we could give them what we feel, but is that correct?
I think that's a good segue, John, to the next item on the agenda, if we can move into that.
Sure.
What you're speaking to is for a union group as far as the negotiations process and adding a negotiated increase to the base wages. That is true. To negotiate beyond that and add more than a CPI increase to the base wages would require a school district to go to a referendum. The district does have within its means, it has the latitude to give supplemental pay increases to our professional staff, and that is what the next item relates to. Is the administration did work on a supplemental, a recurring supplemental pay increase to members of our professional staff. The way our staff are broken out with their wages, we have different categories of base wages for our different staff members. The term that we've used with the distributions that we've been doing lately with our negotiations is this inverse proportion system. We have been giving a larger portion of those negotiated increases in recent years to members of our professional staff that are in the lower base cells, more of our more recent hires. So the recommendation that the administration is bringing forward for this next item is to give a supplemental pay increase. Again, this is outside of and beyond the negotiations process, but recommend the board approve giving a $350 supplemental pay increase to members of the professional staff that currently fall in the higher 20 groupings on that base wage system. And that runs, the base wages I'm speaking of run in the range of $41,161 up to $51,400.
Well, I'd make a motion to approve recurring $350 supplemental wage increase beginning with the 2017-18 contract year for each individual professional staff member who is represented by WREA for the purposes of negotiations and is included in the 2016-17 WREA base wage groupings of $41,161 through $51,400.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve a recurring $350 supplemental wage increase beginning with the 2017-18 contract year for each individual professional staff member who is represented by WREA for the purposes of negotiations and is included in the 2016-17 WREA base wage groupings of $41,161 through $51,400. We have roll call.
Mr. Krings, if I could add just one more detail before the board votes on that. That total dollar amount adds up to about $100,000. That increase for those members, that $350 per person, is about $100,000.
So will that essentially be our biggest wage group?
Yeah, it's about 294 members of WREA at our last count.
And those are the ones that have been nicked on the inverse proportion a little bit?
Those are the individuals that have been getting a lesser increase. Outside of the 16-17, which we did do an equal distribution, but as Mr. Krings indicated, it's $63 or $64 per member. Outside of that, the last few years, the group we're speaking of has been getting a smaller amount by comparison to the more recent hires.
Do we have in current law any other flexibilities as far as negotiations and what we can say and what we can do?
Not with the negotiations.
Same as before.
Base wage. Base wage.
We have roll call, please.
Mr. Bumble?
Yes.
Mrs. Medina? Yes. Mr. Krings?
Yes.
Mrs. Heck?
Yes.
Mr. Davis?
Yes.
Mrs. Lee?
Yes.
Mrs. Rayom?
Yes.
Thank you, Marie. Next, discussion and possible action to approve an increase to to the entry-level base pay for professional staff.
The recommendation that the administration has is to set the entry level effective next school year at $40,000 even. The last 2 school years we've been at $37,500. So this is a $2,500 increase compared to where we've been. We feel very strongly that getting to this level is going to be an absolute necessity to stay competitive in the hiring process. The comparable schools to our district, we typically compare to our like athletic conference schools like Stevens Point, the Wausau District, East Everest. They all are going to be at $40,000 this fall. So just to stay even with them and be competitive, we're going to need to be at this level.
I'd make a motion to approve adjusting the entry-level annual base wage for professional staff to $40,000 beginning with the 2017-18 school year.
Okay, we have motion second to approve adjusting the entry-level annual base wage rate for professional staff to $40,000 beginning with the 2017-18 school year. We have roll call, please.
Mrs. Rayle?
Yes.
Mrs. Lee?
Yes.
Mr. Davis?
Yes.
Mrs. Medina?
Yes.
Mr. Bembo?
Yes.
Mr. Krings?
Yes.
Mrs. Head?
Yes.
Thank you, Maureen. And now we can move on to discussion and possible action to approve recommended 2017-18 budget reductions.
As you remember, Dr. Dickman went through some of these a month ago, and we're looking for approval tonight to move forward with our budget for next school year. I believe there was a green sheet in the packet, and the numbers we put together for to meet our shortfall for next year are itemized there. We have a decline in our revenue limit for next year projected, and that number can change based on our enrollment next September, but we're projecting a student drop, being that our senior graduating class is larger than the kindergarten or 4K coming in, and so that results in a reduction. Some of that is mitigated by a decline in enrollment exemption and also a revenue limit exemption. So putting those together mitigates some of that, but in the end, we have to make up for that decline at some point in the future. We're projecting an 8% health insurance increase. Where that comes from is we went out to bid a year ago for a new health carrier. They have a cap of 8% on the second year, and that's what we're projecting going forward. Is it possible it could come in less? Yes, it is, but we won't know that until November, December of next school year. So at this point, we're budgeting for the 8%. The WA supplemental pay credits, what that is teachers can take classes and receive internal credits for that, and that is the amount. If every teacher took those credits, that's how much they have there to provide for that pay increase, and that's a supplemental increase. The wage increase, part of which you approved tonight, that's the 1.26. That's $393,000 for all staff, not just the teaching staff. And then the final item there is some staffing hires that will need to be made for next year to fill classes at the secondary level, I believe primarily, for classes that on the trimester were offered a little differently, and now we'll need the staff to offer them in the second year. Reductions. The reductions made that were made. Actually, it's a increase in. This is what reduces our shortfall. We had an increase in our per pupil allocation this year. $490,000 was an increase that we received this year, and that'll also apply then to next year. And then for next year, we're projecting $350,000, and if the governor's proposal does hold and go through, that number would increase and probably wipe out our shortfall if they approve the $200 per pupil. Just letting you know that there is a way for that $106,000 to be made up through the governor's proposal of $200 per student. But initially we proposed a little less than that because there was some fighting in the legislature on whether they could actually fund that amount or not. So we had a lesser amount in our budget planning. AGR, that's was the
SAGE.
It was the SAGE program, and now it's the, I don't know what you call it.
Achievement Gap Reduction.
Thank you.
Oh, good.
Additional $35,000 there. We had some savings this year from snow days, and we'll carry that money forward to next year's budget of $51,000. Then we had some staff retirements and resignations. We also had one tonight that's obviously not in here, and we're not sure whether that will actually save money or not until we look at the salary and what the replacement costs are. But about $360,000 there. We had some staff cuts and reassignments for savings of $148,500. And then what we did this year, we funded our HSA in January for the entire 12 months. We're not planning to do that again for next year. The reason we did that this year was to give the employees the benefit of having some money in their account when we started this new program. And now those employees that have been here this year, if they haven't had to use the funds for their health care, we'll have some funds carried over. And so our proposal is we just fund it for the 8 months from January through the end of August in January, and then start funding it again starting the following school year, which actually reduces our budget $433,000 for next school year. Which brings it up with a shortfall of $107,000, which can be made up in some other ways, any other additional resignations or possibly increase to the per pupil amount that the governor is proposing.
Can you explain that HSA payment? I mean, is that you'll make 2 payments into that then? One at the beginning of the year and one?
This year we made 1 payment, and it represented the amount for the entire 12 months. And employees are not allowed to drop or change their coverage during that 12-month period. So if they enroll in family health insurance, they are required to keep that coverage for the 12-month period until the next open enrollment period, which will be sometime in December of 2017. So we felt comfortable in depositing the entire amount for that 12-month period in January. And but going forward, there's no need to deposit. Now, most of the employees should have some funds if they made withholdings during the school year of their own, which they can do, and contribute in that account. There should be some money left over in most of the employees' accounts. We're not feeling the need to have to fund it up front, 100% of it up front. So that's why we are showing a savings there, and we'll be depositing about $433,000 less next January.
That's for how many months? 8?
That would cover it like 8 months. That would keep it at the same level we've been funding it over the last 2-3 years. Even when we had the HRA, the district funded that level of claims. But the HSA is a little different, where they actually have an account, and then they need to pay for their claims out of that account.
You said in that first 12-month period, if they had family, they couldn't change. But if they were single, they could change to family if there was what?
If there was a Yes, a change in their
Marriage,
status.
childbirth, something like that. Okay.
Qualifying, thank you.
Yeah, okay.
Right, if they got married or they had a child or something.
So,
Even adoption qualifies as a change.
so this first year, they have all the money. So if they have something, they
That
have
was
to use
this
it all.
year.
Right.
Right.
Okay, so next year, they're only going to get 8 months. And what if they...
But they have the opportunity all through this year to deposit additional funds into that account on their own.
Right. But if they didn't, and that would just be up to them.
That would be, we encourage them to do that.
Right.
So it's funded at the same level?
The plan is to fund it at the same level as we currently funded it this year, just for 8 months though. And then starting in September, we would make another deposit, and that would be the next fiscal year.
Question on insurance carriers change. Has the change been seamless?
I think the change has been pretty smooth. To say seamless, I don't know if I would say seamless, but overall, it's gone pretty well.
Another question. If in Washington, D.C., stuff gets repealed and all that goes down, does that affect our budget at all?
We don't know.
That's really hard to respond to, Larry. We're not immediately impacted by that in the way of our plan, design, and structure. I think long-term, the impact on premiums, that's the talk that's come out in the last week or since this came about last week is, could this have an impact on what premiums are for people or organizations like our own and the plans that we have, but that'll be years before we really know that sort of impact.
We have a lot of regulations in Obamacare that they might give us some flexibility there.
It would give our carrier flexibility and ultimately us, yes, that's correct. How that's going to affect our premiums, it's really based on utilization, and until we can until we can encourage our staff, or our staff can do things to decrease their utilization, which we're trying to do with the wellness program and things like that, it's not going to impact our utilization.
Any other questions?
I would move recommended 2017-18 budget reductions as presented.
Second. Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the recommended 2017-18 budget reductions as presented. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
I'll move to approve the 2017-18 district budget for it to be published as presented.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the 2017-18 district budget and for it to be published as presented. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Last item, veterans diplomas.
We will do our best to present on behalf of Dr. Dickman, who couldn't make the meeting this evening, but Dr. Dickman was approached regarding a couple of former Lincoln High School students, and when I say former, I'm talking from the 1960s that left school, unfortunately, early because of their service as part of the Vietnam War. And I know that she has been doing research, reviewing the documentation that has been received, and therefore have this item put on the agenda this evening to get board approval in conjunction with board policy 345.53, which does authorize the issuing of a high school diploma for circumstances like this where someone has left early due to service for our country in times of war. I think there's all but just one additional detail that Dr. Dickman is looking into, but was confident enough that she did want to bring this item forward to get your approval this evening so that she could act here in time for the end of the school year to be able to issue those.
I guess I would just ask if you could pass along to these two veterans that if they're not going to participate in the high school graduation ceremony, I would be very honored to present them personally here at the central office or wherever they feel comfortable doing that. So, in the past, we've approved it and they didn't show up at the graduation ceremony, and I think they probably missed that part of it when they weren't here. So if they choose not to partake, I would certainly be honored to present that in person.
And that is my understanding, is that they are not intending to, or they would not be participating in the regular Lincoln High School ceremony. So if that opportunity is there, that we will pass that on to see.
Maybe we could do it at the Honor Cafe, at the Senior Center. I think that'd be pretty neat.
Great idea.
Absolutely. Thank you.
I would move to approve the awarding of a high school diploma to 2 veterans who have applied in accordance with Board Policy 345-53, provided all requirements of Board Policy are satisfied.
Second.
Okay, we have motion and second to approve awarding a high school diploma to 2 veterans who have applied in accordance with Board Policy 345.53, providing all requirements of Board Policy have been satisfied. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.